Hey, this is Nili Brosh, and you're listening to Musicians on the Record today.
Hi, welcome to Musicians on the Record. I'm David Ward. This is the show where we bring you the musician's story, and this is going to be really good today. We have got guitarist extraordinaire Nili Brosh on the show. Welcome, Nili.
Thanks. How are you?
I'm doing well. Nili, you are releasing albums. You are working in the Cirque du Soleil shows. This is some pretty incredible stuff that you're doing. Let's start, though, with a little bit about how you fell in love with the guitar in the first place.
Sure. Thank you. Well, I always loved music. You know, I'm the youngest of four. I'm the only girl, and I always grew up around, older music than I was born in '88, so you do the math. But and I was always like walking around the house, little 2-year-old singing, and I just knew I loved music. And one of my brothers, Ethan, he's a great player. He's a professional guitar player as well. And I just, I wanted to be like him. And when he picked up the electric guitar, I discovered Nuno Bettencourt and other people like that. And the rest was kind of history, Wow.
And so Neil Bettencourt, you mentioned?
Nuno Bettencourt.
Nuno Bettencourt. Yeah, so tell me about him and some of the other artists that were inspiring you at that time.
Well, I mean, it was hard for me to tell as a young kid, what was, considered guitar music, and I had a lot of different influences and stuff. But Nuno was one of my, the oldest influences for me, because I loved the band Extreme, and More Than Words was everybody's song, and to me that was my hook into that. But then when I heard the rest of the record, which sounds quite different, right, I was like, oh, this is really cool, it's super funky, and all I knew as a kid was, if it grabbed my ear, I kind of went after it.
Yeah.
And I guess that's how we ended up here eventually,
right,
somehow.
Right. And first guitar lesson?
I took a lot of lessons when I was a little kid, 7, 8 years old. I started on a very tiny sized classical guitar. I don't really have any real training in that. I wouldn't say that now as a musician, but that was where my start came from. And I would take some lessons, and I would quit, and I would come back to it as a little kid. But when I was 12, I got my first electric guitar, and then through high school, I decided to become a little bit more serious about it.
What was that conversation like with mom and dad saying, hey guys, I want an electric guitar?
It wasn't so bad because I wasn't the first in my family, you know what I mean? But I think when I was younger, I really wanted to be a drummer, and that was definitely not. The drum kit was not entering our home, you know what I mean? Yeah. Well, we lived in an apartment and all that, but yeah. So I think the guitar thing was at least less foreign to my parents, right, let's say. Right. So that helped a lot.
Sure. But you're right. Everybody wants to drum. I totally get that. So
I still do. I still do. I do. I tell everybody that that was really what I wanted to do,
Fantastic.
But looking back at it now, I'm just kind of would I have missed melody too much? You know what I mean? Because I love having a melodic instrument as well as being able to do other stuff. So.
Right. Well, I don't know I haven't heard you play the drums, but you're incredible on the guitar. So that's.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I'm not a good drummer, but I love the instrument, and I love coming up with drum grooves and ideas and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very cool. So obviously this was more than just an interest or a hobby. It became a real passion. When did the dream start developing that saying, hey, I want to do this for a living?
I think just during high school, because I was getting near that age where I had to decide what I was going to do for college and all this stuff, and I think I kind of thought of it as I couldn't think of anything else that I wanted to do, and I also knew that was kind of the right way to go, because I had examples around me of the fact that being a musician is not always the easiest career choice, right? But I also had this feeling as all right, if I really can't see myself doing anything else, then that's probably the only reason that anybody should ever commit themselves to this crazy endeavor, because otherwise you're at the wrong place, you know what I mean?
Right. Sure.
Yeah.
What kind of challenges can you say that have you been through and have now on the other side that you've learned from, that you can kind of tell some other folks, some aspiring musicians who'd like to get to be where you are? What are some of those challenges?
I mean, I guess the hard part about this question is I don't really feel like the challenges ever really go away completely. You know what I mean? Like, I think we all have the same insecurities and the same stuff that we worry about. And I think for me personally, like, just like everybody else, I have my good days and my bad days. You know what I mean? But I would say that the biggest thing that has always helped me is just being around a lot of other musicians, because chances are whatever you're going through, they've been through it or are going through it. And if you have close enough friends that you trust or are willing to talk about that, I think that's the biggest helpful thing. I think the concern that I have about the culture of guitar players being on the internet is that we put up this wall and we don't really talk about these things. You know what I mean? So just having an actual community around me of people that have been through the same stuff was probably the biggest, and continues to be the biggest thing.
Yeah, having that support system is huge. Talk about the pros and cons of the YouTube culture with guitar playing or drumming or whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not a YouTube star or anything like that. You know what I mean? So I'm how much can I really comment on it? I can say that it's definitely helped my career in a lot of ways, and it definitely, it presents other challenges. I mean, it's a platform to get out there that is accessible to everyone, and that is a phenomenal thing that we shouldn't take for granted. But then on the other hand, it obviously has made a lot of things more difficult, and things are really saturated now, and so it just, I think because everything is in such a transition period, it's so hard to tell where things are going to end up. But again, it's just not being too close to it. That's I think for me personally, that's the challenge.
Yeah. What was the original dream for you, Nili, that you wanted where you wanted music to go for you?
I think my dream was always to do like kind of a twofold thing where I do my stuff and I have a side gig, and that's what I'm doing. You know what I mean? I mean, unfortunately, my current side gig leaves very little time for other things. But in my head, that's what's going on, right?
Yes.
Well, I mean, that's the guitar players that I always looked up to and whose careers I've admired always had that type of thing going on. Like they had a solo career, they were established as artists, but they would go out and do something with pop artists or something like that. And I wanted that twofoldness, because I get bored when I do only one of those two. Even if it's my music, like I feel like I need to do something else. So it's a good way to balance things for me. Yeah.
And your solo career, you've got albums, and you've got a new album coming out in 2019, right?
Yeah. So I have 2 albums out, and I'm working on the third one now. It's almost done. I'm really excited about it. I'm filming a music video for it in a couple of days for the first single. It's going to be my first music video, and I'm really excited about it because this is like the first place that I'm saying this. So.
Cool.
Okay.
You got it here first.
No, but the date just, worked out so perfectly that I'm like, I might as well start talking.
Sure.
But no, I'm using 4 dancers from our show, which is one of the things that I'm most excited about, because I grew up in the 90s and I watched a lot of MTV, which for us was the European MTV in Israel, where I grew up. But I loved the 90s pop thing, and I loved the dancer formations and all those throwback music videos. So I wanted to bring that a little bit into my new stuff, especially since I know a lot of dancers, and so I wanted it to be something different and new, and I'm really super excited.
It's fantastic. Congratulations on it.
Thanks.
How would you describe the album, and what's the name of the album?
I don't have the title yet.
Okay, you can't tell us that yet. I understand.
Yeah.
So. Top secret.
But it's the album is a mix. Well, a mix is not the right word. It's a variety of different styles, but there's a concept into how they all go together and mesh on one album. So that's the preview I'm going to give now.
Okay, that's fantastic. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to hear it. Cirque du Soleil, tell us about that. How did you get that job, and can you describe what that's like?
Sure. I mean, Cirque is not secretive about that stuff. They have casting that's, a website just dedicated for that, and a whole network of how that works. But this particular show is kind of a unique situation. It's a resident show. It's called Michael Jackson 1. It's the Michael Jackson show. It's his estate has a big part of it, so it's the only like official Michael Jackson thing that's still running right now. And it's a resident show in Las Vegas and Mandalay Bay, and we do 10 shows a week, and then we try to recover for the next week. That's pretty much it.
That's amazing. 10 shows a week. Can you say a little bit about how you prepare for a show?
Well, for this show, the preparation musically for me is very little now, just because it's the same show. We do it so much. Sure. And it's, for me, because we don't have a band in this show. It's not a pit type of thing. It's, I know it sounds kind of crazy, but mostly everything's on tracks, and myself and a female singer are the only live musicians in the show. Wow. So that means that we're actually characters in the show. So I guess, my character is loosely based on Jennifer Batten, obviously. So I have a whole gold get-up, huge blonde wig, the works, gold guitar, and I'm just kind of running around with the rest of the cast, So if it had been a pit situation where I'm just sitting there playing a couple solos, 10 shows a week would look very different, even with that, But I really feel for this is that my preparation and my job in general is kind of a little bit more being like a pro athlete at the moment. And the music, I don't want to say that it's secondary, because it's not secondary to me, but it's the other stuff that really makes the job and the preparation challenging. So I guess I would say that my preparation is mostly doing the makeup, getting in the wig, that kind of thing.
Well, you're getting your
stretching, a lot of stretching, a lot of like physical therapy, a lot of workouts, like just to stay on top of it is a constant thing.
Sure. Any wire work for you? Are you flying around the stage at all?
Oh, God.
No.
No.
Okay. Okay. That maybe next year.
Oh my God. You know what? I would, like, in my head, I would love to do it, but I have such a fear of heights.
Yeah.
There's one point in the show where I'm up on a platform, and that's enough for me. Like, it's taken me long enough to get used to that, to the point where I don't improvise that solo because I'm just like still scared to be standing there.
Right. Yeah, I'd want my feet on the ground as well. So
right?
Yeah, no doubt.
God, you should see the height that they like start flying from. You know what I mean? Wow. It's like when you know your theater and you see what that really is, you're like, okay, I'm pretty set in my decision now,
It's incredible. So, and tell me, give us a little bit of a glimpse of the show, because I've seen a bunch of Cirque shows with my wife in Vegas. We've seen the Beatles, Love, and
the Love show is amazing. I love the Beatles show. It's a lot like that.
Okay.
It's a little bit different in the sense that we have a regular stage. We don't have like the circle in the middle with all the audience around it. We have a couple of ramps on either side of the stage to run up, so we have a little bit more freedom. But yeah, our show, it's a little bit more dance-oriented than the other Cirque shows because of Michael, obviously.
Sure.
And it's kind of more like about the technology and the sound and the lights and the effects. It's not, there's plenty of acrobatics and everything, but it's much more like new video, high-tech, like new generation Cirque show type thing.
Yeah, that's great. So, sounds fantastic.
And it's a lot of fun. I'm not going to lie. It's a really fun show.
Yeah. Plus, you're getting your music chops and your acting chops in there, right? You get to act for the night. Do you have any lines, or are you just commanding the stage?
But I don't have. None of us really have lines, but I definitely feel free to like yell whatever I want.
All right, cool.
There's a lot of like hype up moments,
Yeah.
So for me, it's fun to be in costume and have the in-ears in, because I feel like I can yell whatever I want. I don't feel embarrassed or weird or anything. That's a much trickier thing to do when you're in an instrumental band and people are like up here. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
do you have a vision? Because a lot of your music is instrumental, right? Your guitar music, solo music. I think about folks. You talked about working with other musicians as well. Do you have any aspirations or visions of working with folks where there is more than instrumental music? Or is that where your heart is or your passion?
I mean, my heart's in music, you know what I mean? I really, and I think that's going to be evident in my next album with all the different styles, but I'm open to whatever. You know, like one of the things that I used to think as a young person is that I had my strengths and I had my weaknesses, and I just thought that was how it was going to be. I didn't consider, foolishly, that you grow, you get better, you can learn new things, you can improve on the stuff that you don't feel like you have, you know? So my vision for myself now is quite different than it would have been maybe 5-10 years ago, because I just feel like there's more for me that I want to explore. So I don't really close the door on anything, you know? I want it to be good, I want the people to be good, and you know, we'll see what happens.
Sure, absolutely. Now, when I've seen you play guitar, I was counting the strings. You're playing an Ibanez. You're 7 strings?
Yeah, primarily, yeah. I mean, most of the time. People, you know, a lot of people come to me and they treat it as if I don't play 6 anymore. And that's not a thing. I mean, to me, they're all guitars, you know?
Yeah. But that's even more impressive to me, because 6 string is hard enough, but you're playing 7. What called you to the 7?
I'm not saying any of them are easy, but I actually did pick that up for a gig originally. When I started playing with Tony McAlpine, you know, his music was, especially at that time, had a lot of 7-string material in it. And I didn't have one. I just really needed the instrument, and I needed to learn the music to be able to do the gig. And it just became part of what I do. I mean, you know, I really look at it as it's just an extra string to utilize in whatever ways makes sense. I don't try to make it more or less than it is, you know?
Okay. I thought it was very cool and even more impressive. The other thing that I saw in researching you and your career is you went to Berklee College of Music and you graduated summa cum laude. Congratulations. Do you remember this? Do you recall this?
Yeah, I remember it. I just always think it's funny because it's like just the most ironic thing. It's like, why do you need good grades from a music school, you know? So now I think it's funny because I look back and I'm like, well, this will pay my bills. No, but thank you. I mean, I loved Berklee, and it's a place that I enjoyed being a nerd at, you know what I mean? Because that's something that I didn't really feel like I could do in high school with actual nerdy things. Yeah, right. So I was like, well, I can nerd out on this, and you know, I really wanted to make the most of that place because it cost a lot of money to go there.
Sure, yeah.
So that to me was really the reason. But like I said, I look back at it now and I'm like, those things so didn't matter. It's funny what you think matters at the time, you know?
Absolutely. Yep, no question. What did you learn from Berklee that helped you both musically and career-wise, talking about the business of music?
Just how to make friends, you know, like the fact that, I mean, I really believe that networking and connections are really friendships. I don't think they start with, here's my CD, let me like shove it in your face type thing. You know, I never liked that approach. It never worked for me. I didn't feel good doing it. And, you know, at least for me, I just feel like you just really want to make friends and then play music with whoever it's natural to play music with. And I guess, you know, Berklee just taught me to have a good relationship with those things and how to approach things from a musician, a human being standpoint, and not like I'm going to be an opportunist about everything that I can now, you know. Sure. And it's hard to draw the line, you know. We all feel the pressure. We all have the same, you know, interests and goals and stuff like that. But I think it's important to remember that.
That's great. Yeah, and I've heard that from so many other folks as well, so many other musicians, is that connection, the networking, the hanging out, the friendships are so important. Who are some of the friends on your new album that you're playing with?
Well, I have my band, Ray Rojo on drums and Ellie Marcus on bass, are doing a lot of the tracks. Actually, I should correct that. Some of the drums will be electronic, just for sonic reasons. But I still, again, I don't want to give all the information yet.
Okay.
So we'll pause there. But
got it. Okay, we could do a follow-up and talk about what the album release. How was that?
Sure, sure.
That's
Sounds
great.
good.
Excellent.
Because, you know, listen, I will say, look, it's my first concept album, and I'm really excited about it. And it is something that, like, when the time comes, it would be awesome to actually have the platform to talk about and explain the whole thing. Because, you know, it's the first time I really feel like I have something to say. I definitely want to say it.
Yeah.
Don't want to say it all.
Right, exactly. Not right now. It's not ready. It's still baking in the oven, so to speak.
That's right.
Yeah.
I hope it works out.
Yeah. It's awesome. So, yeah, we'd love to have you back on when it's out, and we can talk all about it. How's that? Yeah, that's great. Excellent. Nili, for somebody who, and I know we're just about at that time, for someone who wants to play guitar as well as you, who wants to have music professionally in their lives, what would be the top one or two things that you would recommend they do?
I mean, I guess you got to make sure you're in it for the right reason, you know, because like I said, you know, it's like every job is hard, right? But I mean, it's taking on this independent thing is another beast. And I personally, I believe if you're not in it for the right reasons, you're going to have just a harder time. And it's not going to be worth it. I don't know. I'd be ready to make a real sacrifice, because that's, at the end of the day, like, I don't want to lie to anybody. Like, this is really what it is. And I actually discovered that more through the years, not less. You know, you always think that, like, oh, I put in a lot of hours practicing when I was a teenager, I went to college, blah, blah, blah. It's actually, I feel like it's the other way around, you know, because you realize how much more of your entire life has to go into it for it to just work out as a career. And it's, you know, and it's in your hands. So the amount of time that you put into it correlates, you know? Right. So yeah. I think those are that's, again, why you want to be in it, for the right reason. That's
right. The big why, right? Asking the why. Excellent. Great stuff. Looking forward to the new album. Nili Brosh, thank you so much for being on Musicians on the Record today.
Thank you for having me, David. I appreciate it.